To begin our night, we're going to begin our night here this evening. We have several panelists, a couple students, a couple parents, and one of our teachers who are going to share a little bit about their experience at Wheaton Academy. And before we get started at all, I'd like to just open our night in prayer and then say a few things and then have our panelists introduce themselves. So will you join me in prayer? Lord Jesus, we are so grateful to you for another day of life, for what we were able to experience and celebrate over the weekend, the joy of your death and resurrection, so that all of us may have life. And Lord, we thank you for that life, and we know that that can take us in all sorts of different directions. And it's wisdom for direction that we seek tonight as students and parents are gathered here to look at Wheaton Academy and consider if this might be a good fit for sons and daughters for their high school education. And so we pray for your Spirit to be active tonight. We ask that you'll give guiding, leading, and direction, guidance, leading, and direction for the conversations that we'll have, and help this night to be fruitful and informative for all who are here. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. I want to just say a couple of important things about Wheaton Academy, and right above me you'll see our mission statement. And that is more than a sign that we put around our campus. It talks a lot about relationships, excellence, and service. And I want to just summarize that for you. You know, those three things are very important in a high school student's experience at Wheaton Academy. As far as relationships, there are really three areas that we focus on as far as relationships are concerned. First and foremost, we want all of our students to have a personal relationship with their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We also want every student to be known and to be challenged by living curriculum teachers who they spend a whole lot of time with throughout high school. And then finally, we want every student to be encouraged to nurture positive and mature relationships with their peers and with their parents. So those are really three key areas of relationships. And then in the area of excellence, there are really two significant opportunities we focus on as far as excellence at Wheaton Academy. And the first is that every student will have an experience at excellent academic education that results really in a comprehensive preparation for college. We want to make sure every student's ready for that next step. And also, we want every student to have the opportunity to explore their giftedness, to find a niche somewhere beyond the classroom. And that happens for so many of our students. In fact, we have, and you'll probably get some of this from the panel, we have about 2,000 co-curricular spots for our 650 students. And if you do the math, that's almost 3 potential spots somewhere outside of the classroom to get involved for our students. So there are a multitude of opportunities as far as pursuing their niche or their giftedness. And then finally, as far as service, we want every student to have an opportunity to serve others and to grow in their understanding of the world around them. The world is much bigger than just us, and I think you'd find at Wheaton Academy the message goes well beyond students being the center of the world, but rather that there are so many people out there who need our help, who need Christ followers. And so our students engage in service in high school, but also we want them to be propelled into lifelong service. So kind of think of that as 3, 2, 1 as far as our relationships, excellence, and service. But with that, I would like to invite our panelists to introduce yourself. Maybe if you're a parent, you can tell us how old your students are. Maybe if you've had graduates, where they are right now, and students, what grade you're in, what you're involved in. And we have one teacher as well, maybe a little bit about what you do at Wheaton Academy.
I'm Jeff Mann, and I have 2 students at Wheaton Academy. My son Kevin is a senior, and my daughter Katie is a sophomore, and Katie's right over there. So if you want to tour the school, you can see Katie later.
I'm David McCordick. I'm a junior this year at Wheaton Academy. I'm involved in the Furnace Company improv team, the track team, first time this year, concert choir, and yeah, just a few little things here and there.
My name is Gloria Sari, and I'm a senior. I do costume crew and service crew for the musical in the spring. I did student rep, obviously. I'm also involved in literary journal for this year for the first time, and I did band freshman year.
Hi, I'm Judy Duncan. My son Andrew is presently a junior here. My daughter Hannah, who is a junior in college, graduated here. She came in as a transfer student. We were new, sort of back in the Chicagoland area, but new to the West Chicago area. And she completed her, and was a very positive experience here at Wheaton Academy. And then we have hosted students, international students, a variety. Right now we actually host 3, one boy from Vietnam and 2 from China. And so we have 2 freshmen and 2 freshmen and 2 juniors in our home.
I'm Matt Dominguez, and I teach literature. So I teach Shakespeare to seniors, and I teach a philosophy and culture class for seniors. I went to Wheaton Academy, which is great, and this is my 10th year teaching here. I also run an adventure club, and so we do rock climbing, ice climbing, sailing in the Virgin Islands, and we have a lot of fun on adventures. So.
Well, thanks. Well, I'd like to start just with our academic program and ask you a question about our academic program as far as challenge. And maybe students, if you could talk a little bit about an experience maybe where you have been challenged, pushed to go beyond where you thought you could. It's our goal here at Wheaton Academy to put every student in the learning zone. That's what we call it. Call the learning zone a place where students are constantly, no matter what course they're in or activity they're in, to be challenged, where it's a little bit difficult all the time, and pushing students beyond where they think they can go. So students, maybe an experience that you've had like that, and parents maybe where you've seen one of your students in that situation.
Well, I'll start off by saying last year I took what I think is safe to say the hardest class I've ever taken at school, college algebra, with Miss Frizzy. And it was definitely, the material was hard and it was all new for me, but what was great about it was Miss Frizzy was always, like, after school, she would be here for like what seemed like a really long time for me, ready to help me whenever I could come in and answer all my questions. And at the same time, it wasn't like, oh, I'm struggling in college algebra, so Mr. Mack should go easy on me. Like, it was still, I still felt the same amount of challenge from all my other classes, but I knew that each teacher, I could still go in and get as much help as I needed from them whenever they were available, which is most times. So I got through it, so it was good.
Well, last year I took anatomy and physiology with Mr. Ellis, and I had a lot of fun until the first test came around and I failed it because I didn't realize that he tested like a college professor would test. But he helped me through it. I got to retake the test and I got to learn it, and even though I had to dissect a cat and memorize all the bones in the body, I still had so much fun and I had to learn a lot, and it was definitely stretched my brain because I had to think like I was in a college class, and that was a little harder than I would have liked, but I definitely loved it. So.
I think that one of the things I love about Wheaton Academy is we get this concept that students love to learn. Maybe you haven't had the best school experience somewhere, but everybody loves to learn. And so we try to connect your giftedness with learning and make it enjoyable and engaging, and then you can flourish when you start loving learning, and you start connecting with that. And then another thing I love about this place is supporting that concept. As teachers, we have time to work together to find creative ways to help students tap into that love of learning, and we even have a collaboration time together in the morning on Wednesdays specifically for that. So.
And one thing I would say is beyond the challenge of the academics, I think it's really been fun to watch different students in our home, some not my own children, some my own, get expanded by exploring areas they wouldn't normally explore. My son discovering, ceramics really could be fun, and watching some of the international students do art for the first time, and come back and really, really excited about it. And so even though it's not challenging in the sense of oh, am I going to pass or fail? It's been challenging because it's put them to go into a box, and the teachers don't make it easier for them because it's a first time around for them. They really still have to explore and learn and discover. And even things like discovering you have to test in gym, you know? I mean, you have to know the rules of the sports, and seeing some of the kids discover, oh, gee, nothing's really a total cakewalk. So it's been very fun watching them do it, but rising to the occasion has been the other part that's been nice.
You know, I think I've watched our kids as they've gone through just in a lot of different ways. As the homework comes home, my wife keeps pretty good track of that. And it really seems like the homework isn't just like busy work, like, okay, I gave you something to do just to do it, but there's critical thinking involved, there's reading, there's writing, and as my son is a senior now and preparing to go to college, I think he's really well prepared. One of the things that I've seen at Wheaton Academy academically is that the kids are given pretty good freedom to, they're given freedom to treat. I take that back. They're treated like adults. They're not handheld through the process. They're treated like adults. They're treated more like kind of like a college setting. And I think my son will be very well prepared for college. And just the way they work, they have to, you know, when they're in sports and stuff, they have to use their time very wisely to get the work done that they need to get done. So from that learning zone perspective, I know that there's different levels of classes and that, and kids can fit in at different places academically in the school, but there's definitely challenge levels for all levels of students at the school.
You know, in my office, I have one phrase that I see all the time. It's painted on my wall. It says, "As is the teacher, so goes the school." And I firmly believe that. Here at Wheaton Academy, we call our teachers living curriculum teachers because we believe that the scriptures tell us that ultimately the student becomes like their teacher. So there's nothing more important here than our teachers. And parents and students, maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the teachers that you interface with each day. What are they like?
Yeah, as I kind of previously mentioned, the teachers are always so willing to make sure that you're not just getting a good grade on a test or, you know, just kind of going through their class, but they focus on you learning, and not just kind of learning it and taking it in, but rather like taking what they're teaching you and like kind of growing from it and like applying it to you know, something practical. So as I said, like with a lot of my teachers, especially last year, I just had to come in a lot and get help from them. And what was great is I think I had to come in at least once, if not many more times than that, but at least once probably for every class, and all of them were so willing to just help me through it and just kind of, you know, understand where I was coming from and kind of analyze and see what I was struggling with and, like, you know, figure out a way to help to better or more effectively rather get me to learn what they were teaching. So yeah, that was a great experience with teachers.
Well, if I can use Mr. Dominguez as an example, since he's sitting over here, we call him Mr. D, and he teaches philosophy and theology here. And as a senior, I got to take his class last semester, and it was fun. It was more than fun. I can honestly say that his class was the first time I was actually challenged to make my faith my own. And, you know, I had kind of like cheated through the rest of my Bible classes. You know, I knew how to write the right answers, and I could memorize all the verses. But with Mr. D, we didn't have to memorize the verses. We actually had to, like, apply the verses, I guess. And I'd never had to do that before. And I just have to say that that was one of the first times in my life that I was like, oh my gosh, this teacher actually cares that I grow in my faith, and that this is a whole class just dedicated to helping me and my classmates grow in our faith. And that's what I think.
Gloria, I would mirror that comment because my son Kevin had Mr. D too, and the exact same thing I saw happen with Kevin. I think the other thing, the teachers here truly care about the kids and get to know them well, and that really came apparent. You know, when it comes time to apply to college, you need to get references, and so you think to yourself, okay, well, who should, you know, my son or daughter get references from? Well, the teachers had invested so much in my son that there were multiple choices that we could get references from because the teachers knew him at a very deep level. And so it's just kind of a matter of deciding, well, who should he get a reference from? not, is there someone here that knows him? There were a lot of people here that know him. The teachers truly care about the kids here.
And I'll just put a big exclamation point behind that. And I can see it not only that the fact that their door is always open, and they really have been open to every one of our students, you know, right now, as well as my daughter when she was here, and another young woman when she was a boarding student with us. There just has always been an open door. But the other part is they also communicate a lot back to parents. It's very common for teachers to do, you know, we've just finished a unit, we're going to be going on to this unit. It's been great to hear, especially like give you topics for around the dinner discussion, things like World War II, you know, or other fun things like that. But your history teachers will keep you informed on what's going on, and challenge us to incorporate it into some of the family dynamics. And that's been very helpful. And it, you know, even spurs one another on, because the kids get to interact together and see, oh, gee, for the younger ones to get to see what they can anticipate, and it begins to get their wheels rolling on some of these topics that can sometimes be a little bit deeper. And I love it when especially, it seems like a lot of history and literature teachers like to give out those, you know, big, heavy questions, and they really can turn the meal quite a bit around.
Well, parents, if I can ask you one question that maybe takes this a level deeper. You know, Christian education requires a significant investment of resources. There's no doubt about that. And I guess two questions related to that. One is, if you had to decide, what is it that really makes you want to invest in the lives of your kids using your resources for Christian education? What is it? One thing, or are there two or three main things that have caused you to decide to make that investment? And then secondly, has it been worth it? Has there been a return on that investment?
Well, I'd like to answer that, because when we came and moved back into the area, our kids had both public education and Christian education to draw from. And we were asking them, you know, what was their feel and what would they like? And without a doubt, they said, we would love to be able to go to a Christian school again. And we began to explore it. And it isn't always easy financially, but I think the other part that's really great is your kids get to see that even as adults, you're on a journey of faith. And your faith is also growing as a result of trusting God for another year. And we've seen it, you know, in so many lives of families, that there are ways that God does provide, and sometimes they're surprising, and sometimes it's extra work, or sometimes it's that unusual thing that happens to come your way. But it also shows your kids that even as parents, that you too are growing in this area. And I've appreciated that now we have, you know, a total of 3 daughters out, and so now that they can look back and see that, and even now even reflect on some of that from time to time, and that's been very meaningful.
You know, I think when we started, I remember a colleague at work said, well, gee, if you added up all the tuition, you know, and I said, you know what, I can't look at it that way. I'm not going to look at it that way, because if you did that, you might not do it. And we just trusted God, and God provided. And this has been a phenomenal experience for our kids. I mean, I just see my son as from how he came in as a freshman and where he is as a senior, and to watch him take his faith as his own, to have him have coaches and teachers that are emphasizing the same things that we're emphasizing at home, to have coaches who are about building young women and young men into being godly young men and godly young women through athletics, to have things taught in the classroom and have them challenged in the classroom, to think critically about their faith and be challenged to take their faith as their own, and have peers who are praying for them, and the community that's between the students. I mean, this has just been a phenomenal experience for us. And I know there's really good options in this area for school. There's great public schools in the area, but this, I think, for my kids was a really, really good decision, and I'm glad that we made the investment.
This one's for Mr. Dominguez. We talk a lot about teaching from a Christian worldview, and that could mean a lot of things depending on who's talking about a Christian worldview. But Matt, I wondered if you could tell everybody a little bit about what does that mean here at Wheaton Academy to teach, whether it's English or whether it's science or whether it's math, from a Christian worldview. What does that mean?
Thanks. It's definitely a passion of mine. I teach it to so many seniors, but what I love is that it's not just a Bible class. This is part of the culture of WA, even outside of the classroom. And it's in this sense of not knowing just what we believe, but it's knowing why we believe it, and then in the context of there's a lot of options out there. And there's the atheism and Buddhism and Hinduism and all these other ways to look at the world. And what we've realized and what we really believe is that the Christian way to live, Jesus' way to live, is the best way to live. We can't just say that. We have to be able to explain why that's the case, and then that's where it gets outside of the classroom. We start living that, and we realize it really is. And that's also going into the academic side of it, too, is being prepared for in college. If these guys have said making your faith your own, if you're not owning your faith and then knowing why you're picking Jesus as opposed to all the other options out there, when you hit college and head out of the home and you're not prepared for that, that can be incredibly overwhelming. And so I love that at Wheaton Academy we've created a safe place academically, socially, in sports, and in so many ways just beyond the classroom, but also embedded not just in the Bible curriculum, but in history, right? And in so many other places, and in biology and in literature and in all these other places where we get to talk about why Jesus, as opposed to these other perspectives with materialism and dualism and all this other stuff that's going on. It's great to have a place where we can flesh that out.
You know, about 7 or 8 years ago, I was principal of another high school, and it was about 40 miles from here. And I visited Wheaton Academy, and I realized there was an opening here. And when I experienced Wheaton Academy, there was something about the culture, the aura here that drew me. And it drew me in such a way that I was willing for 4 years to commute 40 miles each way to work because I absolutely love this place. And then I knew I wanted my own kids. My oldest is a freshman now here at Wheaton Academy. I wanted them to experience it as well. But I won't tell you what that culture, that aura is. I wondered if each of you could maybe take a shot at explaining what's the unique thing about Wheaton Academy? What makes it different maybe than other schools as far as you know? Describe the culture for us a little bit.
Well, freshman year, I was in band because I was scared I wouldn't be able to make any friends. And so we had band retreat about a week before school actually started. And so I walk into the Fine Arts building over there, and I go and stand in a corner because I'm scared to death that I won't make any friends. And I'm not there for more than a minute before 2 seniors come up and start talking to me, and they introduce me to other freshmen who are scared to death. And after that, they introduce me some sophomores, and sorry, I can't talk. And eventually, I have all these friends, and I'm feeling comfortable, and these seniors, they took me under their wing, and they just, they helped me practice my flute, which I hated, and it's true, I hated that. I quit it after a year. But that's just a picture to me. I had a friend who went to another public high school, and she got beat up her first day. And I came in my first day after band retreat, and I knew people, and I knew the person who was next to me, who we shared lockers, It was great. I loved it, and that's basically the same image I've been seeing all 4 years, is just upperclassmen helping underclassmen, teachers coming in and influencing. It's just a great, what's it called, environment? That's a good word, yeah.
Yeah, to add on to what Gloria said about the upperclassmen reaching out to the underclassmen, I came in my freshman year with an older brother who had transferred his junior year. And I was kind of, the first day I remember walking through the senior hallway back here, and I was all scared because I knew there's all the big seniors, and I was just a little freshman. And I was kind of expecting my brother to not want to introduce me to his friends, to be like, oh, it's my my dumb little brother that's a freshman. But they all, not just my brother, but him and all his friends all kind of took me in, and they're like, yeah, David, he's Kyle's little brother, and he's really cool. And it was kind of totally flipped of what I expected. Coming in here, I just kind of expected that typical Hollywood movie high school experience you get where the freshman always gets pushed around and stuff. But it was really great. And I'd say definitely getting to know certain seniors my freshman year really kind of shaped how I would kind of perform at this school in a few years. So it was great for me.
If I could jump in, what I love about this school is it's not teacher and adult driven. We've got to make this the great place for kids to be. The students, you can look around, they own it. they love being here, and they want to protect that culture. And it's really, I mean, yes, high school is high school, and there are parts of this school that we would like to improve, and you're going to find all different types of people here like you would at any school. But the thing that I love about Wheaton Academy is that the majority here is they love being here, and they're working on loving each other and living out Christ. And so that's where you have this sense of you're not the minority outcast if you're trying to live that way. That's the culture here. That's where you get to be, and it's safe to be that. And if you're not in that, it's almost like, why aren't you a part of this? Because it's so wonderful and amazing. And I love it that it's student-driven. The students own that, and they make that happen. And as teachers, we just get to support that or bring inspiration, which is really exciting.
I saw homecoming week this last year, and I looked at that and I thought, boy, that wasn't like that when I was in high school. So, they have a series of class competitions, and just the school spirit. They would have different dress-up days, and I think they had 100% participation, 99% participation of kids dressing up each day, competing with the other classes. There was one night where they did a service project, and they all brought in supplies to pack bags for Haiti, and then culminated with a soccer game and fireworks on the soccer field and a fun square dance out here. And I thought, whoa, what school spirit where you have 100% of the kids competing in class competition and dressing up. But then, the flip side of that was I watched my son go through a football season that was a challenging season. It was a rebuilding year. And I watched a team of boys that banded together, that loved God and loved each other, and they didn't give up. And then I watched them support their coach as he announced to the team that he had a brain tumor at the end of the season and had to have surgery as soon as the season was over. And I watched a coach that the weekend before he went into surgery wrote a very, very detailed script for the banquet and specifically challenged each one of those boys at the sports banquet, something that I wouldn't have been thinking of the weekend before I was going into brain surgery. And then I watched the boys rally around him, and they all shaved their heads when he shaved his head. And I watched those boys go over to his house, and rake his yard and clean out his gutters every Saturday for the next several weeks throughout the fall, and to help his wife out while their football coach was responding. So it's a fun place. It's a place of community, and it's a place where people care about each other. The teachers care about the kids, and the kids care about each other and love the teachers. It's really a unique place.
And I want to just put another big exclamation. I'm good at that. And I would also add, I would say a part of what pervades the culture here is the awareness that everyone is created in the image of God. Imago Dei, that is just something that really pervades, whether it's the fine arts or the sports or even things like scholastic team. Everyone realizes they have a part, and they're on a team, and they have unique gifting, and that they're going to be spurred on and empowered to use those gifts. And I've seen that throughout the entire time we've been involved here. And just on a little lighter side, and what Mr. Mann is talking about is, one day the boys even went out and bought hot pink at Goodwill for that week of homecoming week. And I get a little text back to me on my phone with 4 boys all decked out in hot pink. They just tried on their outfit at Goodwill, and they were so excited. And it was like 10 days before homecoming week. They even had to be ready for it. So they really do generate a wonderful enthusiasm that really creates a team spirit amongst everybody.
I want to add one thing for the culture. It kind of overlaps with academics as well. But I love at this school, like cell phones, students carry their cell phones around, and we trust students here. And we trust them that they'll behave maturely. And if they're not, we'll show how. And rather than saying, a cell phone's evil and we're going to put them over here, it's part of the culture here to use that tool to further Christ's kingdom. Let's figure out how to use these tools well. So much so that we're going to 1-to-1 here, I think, in 2 years, where I brought my iPad, and we're going to have it so that every student has a an iPad or a computer that they carry with them everywhere. We're going to trust students to make that part of the learning experience versus saying, no, you're high school students, you can't handle that. It's, no, you can handle that, and we're growing as adults, and we're all part of this together, and I really love that about this place, that we trust students, and we're treating them with dignity and respect, and they give that back to us, which is wonderful. So.
I'd like to really quickly add to what Mrs. Duncan said. Wheaton Academy is a place where I felt comfortable this last homecoming to show up on color day in bright pink overalls and little piggy slippers, and not get made fun of. So, good place.
You know, pink has become so popular, it's now a color for our school uniform. I'm just kidding. Well, hey, I want to take this opportunity to just thank our panelists, if you join me in thanking them for contributing. And each of them will be here. We're going to show you just a short video.